there. Now you can order this with sort of looks like the standard derailleur, and then you've also got what's called an Vinci hub gear set. So what's the advantage of one over the other then?
No problem. So the standard derailleur works as a standard derailleur would. The Da Vinci hub, however, is really interesting new technology. There are a couple of elements to it. First of all, it's an internal hub, which means that there are no gears on the outside. Now, what that means is there is no maintenance. It's tuned right out of the box, so as soon as you get the bike, you can start riding. And the best part about it is the way that it actually works. So instead of switching gears as you normally would, you turn a dial, kind of like you would turn a dial on a radio. And you adjust it depending on what kind of terrain you're riding on. If you're approaching a hill, you just dial it out. If you're coming down on a flat ground, you can dial it in. And it gives you a much wider range. So instead of being limited to 8 gears or whatever number of gears your general derailleur will have, this essentially allows you to have unlimited gears. And there are a couple of other advantages. For example, one of the common problems that we encounter with a regular derailleur is that if you stop before climbing a hill, it becomes very difficult to switch a gear. Usually it works best when you're moving. With an internal hub, like Da Vinci or some of the other ones on the market, you can adjust your gears when you're stopped or when you're moving.
So talk a little bit about what the sort of marketing plan is. Obviously, you're riding across country. You're not quite halfway yet. I think you said about 1,700 miles that you've come, and that gives you another 2,300 miles that you're going to have to ride across the western part of the United States. So that's part of sort of raising the visibility. So what else are you doing to get? You got a website. You're making this ride. What are your inspirations marketing-wise?
Well, it's a good question. And actually, as far as being halfway, I still remember when we were looking at a map of the route right before, the night before the trip began. And I remember thinking that, if we can get to Omaha, from that point on, it's literally all downhill from there. Well, maybe not literally.
Well, it's sort of uphill to the compact piece.
So as far as aspirations go, now, electric bikes in the US, they've encountered some difficulties in wide adoption, and in part that has to do with the distribution channels. So, traditionally, bikes will be sold in one of two venues. It's either going to be big box stores like Target, Walmart, that sort of thing, or local bike shops. Now, the issue with electric bikes is that traditional big box stores are not really equipped to sell them. They generally lack the knowledge or the know-how on how to sell, and then most importantly, service electric bikes. As far as local bike shops, for one reason or another, we haven't had a lot of interest from local bike shops in implementing and adding electric bikes to their lineups.
Yeah, do you think there's sort of I don't want to use the word bias, but there's sort of there's a culture of, cycling using human power rather than, relying on a motor of some kind, and that sort of translates across to the marketing side? Yeah,
well, this has a lot to do with how bicycle is viewed in the States. It's generally viewed as something either for the kids or for sport, and to a much lesser degree than transportation. So when you look at a bike from a sport perspective, you can understand why there is a bias towards human-only power. However, once you start looking at it more from a transportation perspective, and in terms of what will help a person get from point A to point B, then electric bike starts to make a lot of sense. But as far as local bike shops go, we just haven't seen that sort of adoption from them just yet. So for us, and for a lot of other electric bike manufacturers, most of the demand comes either from online sales, which is good, but a little bit difficult because before somebody spends $2,000 on a bike, they want to be able to test ride it. And then it's a very personal purchase. Fortunately, there's been a growing network of electric bike shops. Right now, there are about 40 to 50 of them throughout the country, and it's growing on a regular basis. So we're already starting to work with them to get our bikes into their shops. Fortunately, just coming back to the traditional local bike shops perspective, what we've been seeing over the years is that traditional bike companies like Trek, Giant are also getting into the electric bike game. So they're seeing a market there, and they're producing electric bike models, and they are incentivizing their shops to carry them. So I think as we see that take place, we'll start having easier time on getting other electric bike brands into local bike shops.
Well, walk us through what a sort of a typical day is for you. Obviously, it's an electric bike. It needs to be charged. So what would your day take us through a day from across the country? Where do you charge? When do you charge?
It's all good questions. Now, first of all, I think it's interesting because when you think about a road trip across America, oftentimes you will have this very romanticized image of what that looks like, and frankly, so do we. The reality, the day-to-day grind, is a little bit different because your typical day will be waking up at 6:30 in the morning, having a quick breakfast, then packing the trailers in. We're basically pulling 2 trailers behind our 2 bikes with all of our belongings, work-related stuff, and extra batteries. Then, depending on the day, we'll ride on average around 80 miles, which is about 8 to 9 hours of riding. And then eventually, we'll get to our destination. When we're in cities, we usually aim to stay with locals, just because it creates a much richer experience. So by the time we reach the destination, we usually have little energy for anything other than a shower and a dinner. So we take care of that first. After that, we usually spend a few hours working just to catch up on the blog, catch up on things back home. And then if there's still time, we'll do a walk around town and interact with the hosts. And then we'll pack in for the night.
Start again the next morning. So, so this sort of gets into the performance side of the bicycle. What people are going to ask you, well, how far does it go, that kind of thing. So walk us through what you normally, how you explain that.
So, generally, an electric bike will give you a range. It varies, but it will give you a range of up to 40 miles on pedal assist mode. Essentially, for us, because we're riding anywhere from 70 to 100 miles a day, we'll take a couple of extra batteries and we'll generally charge them all at night. So as we're traveling, as we cross that 40-mile threshold, we just swap batteries to a fresh one and keep going.
Okay, so that's how. So we don't have to stop somewhere along the line.
No, it's not necessary. But the beautiful part about the electric bike, versus a moped or a scooter, is that even if the battery runs out, we're still able to pedal it, and we oftentimes do. So it's just the pedal assist allows us to go a little bit faster. It makes the hills a little bit easier, and also makes carrying 80 pounds of gear per bike just less tiresome. So
when do you anticipate getting to the West Coast? You're driving to. Where are you riding to? What's your final destination?
Our endpoint is actually San Francisco, where we're doing a talk and a presentation there, and we should be getting there at around June 20th. Okay. That's our plan. So
cost of the bike? What are you asking for the models?
The bikes start at $1,800. Depending on the model and depending on the configuration, but yeah.
Okay, good. Well, so tomorrow you head back out, and what's your destination for tomorrow?
The following 8 days of the trip don't have much of destinations. It's mainly from motel to motel. Okay. Our next big destination is going to be Denver.
Okay.
and we're expecting to reach that on May 17th.
And that's where you pick up your partner, who I guess was injured or something?
That's right. My partner that I started the trip with, she had a minor injury that's taken her about 2 weeks to recover from.
Okay.
So in order to make sure the tour continues, I'm cycling along, and she will join me in Denver when I get there.
Okay, great, good. Thank you very much, Boris.
Thank you very much, Bill. I appreciate it.